I love it.
Jared, God, it's so good to see your beautiful face. It's been a while, man.
Likewise, dude. How are you doing?
Doing great, doing great. We're just welcome to Hazy Not Crazy with Nate and Shannon. I'm repping some merch today, actually.
Oh, look at that. I love
Yeah,
it. Yeah. I welcome. We haven't officially met, so I'm happy to meet you. This is
Likewise,
awesome.
Shannon.
Um,
Likewise. Thanks for all the work you're doing for the community.
oh yeah. In fact, I was just telling Nathan, your name came up yesterday for some surf camps that you do in New Jersey. And I was like, hey, we're having him on our podcast. So I was like, tell me more about those surf camps because, I live in California on the beach and we got to take advantage of this. Like, oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
Jared. I'm like, I don't, he's going to be on my podcast tomorrow. That's random.
Were you talking to Colleen Quinn?
Yeah, sure was. So,
Paul's Purple Warriors. I talk to her
yep.
all the time.
Yeah, it's super awesome. So we're
Nathan,
the Hunley
Nathan,
Foundation is
yeah.
signing on to all her seizure safe schools. So and she's
Awesome.
probably going to be a guest. So I'm super excited.
That's great. Yeah, Nathan and I were talking for a while trying to get one of those in California. Trying to get it at one of the wave pools so that it's super safe and easy and they get to ride perfect waves. But we haven't we haven't been able to crack that code because that costs a lot of money to get into those
Yeah, well,
waves.
let's do it. We'll work with you. We'll figure something out. But
God,
are you in California?
We were talking. Yeah,
Jared?
that was like pre-COVID. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Shannon.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I just wondered where you're located.
Pre-COVID. I live in Santa Barbara, California.
Oh, I went to Westmont. So,
There you go. Yeah, just up the hill from where I live. I literally live about 5 minutes away from that spot.
oh, cool. Love it. It was awesome.
Shannon, Jared used to paddle board to work.
Oh, really? Wait, well, where'd you work? In the ocean?
Down in Ventura.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a paddleboard for sure. The trek.
Crazy. Yeah, we met Jared. One of the first things he did with the foundation when I was in LA was I went. He was like, "Do you know how to drive a boat?" I was like, "Sure." In the ocean, absolutely. It can't be that much harder than a car, right? Let's get a boat. So I followed him in a boat and got some great pictures of him paddleboarding. And that's when
That was you. I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm putting it all together.
17 miles. I think we raised like what, $6,000 or so, Nathan?
Yeah, it was really awesome. And I really definitely want to follow up with you about doing a surf event down there in SoCal as well and get back, everybody's, I think things are returning a little more to normal and post COVID. So it's just such a great event. And Jared, it's so great to have you on. You've been one of my longest friends in this epilepsy sort of space. And we have, we'll share some pictures after your surgery, during your surgery, before your surgery. I've been able to kind of be there for it all. And it's so cool to see your success. And then Shannon, Jared and I will randomly call each other when we're pissed off at the pharmacy.
Like guaranteed once every 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Jared called me one time. It's just like, it's so true. It's just like you're a number on a spreadsheet, and man, do you feel it when, you're just trying to get your medicine, and it's just like, God, so many barriers you didn't think there would be for you maybe not to get that, or if you're running out, or somebody's running low on supply and they can't just front you pills, or we've had many a conversation about that.
It's especially tough because almost, everyone who works to create that medicine is doing it from a good mindset, and everyone who prescribes it and works at the pharmacy, they're there to help you as much as possible. And it just, all these restrictions that are placed on them. It's like a battle to make sure you stay healthy, both with the epilepsy and on the mental front, to learn to not take it as a personal attack,
Sure.
Sometimes I have, and there's, That's not a good thing for myself or for anyone involved. But yeah, Nathan and I were vent sources for each other. But I also remember all the times Nathan would show up for my appointments with me. Maybe it was one of the long tests I would be doing at UCLA, or he'd just come after to go grab ice cream or a donut with me so he could just calm down and kind of reward for going through the effort of that long drive and dealing with putting yourself on this little petri dish that is a hospital. And it has long-term benefits for everyone involved, but it doesn't ever really make it fun.
Yeah, you nailed it with that one. Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds about right for Nathan. That's why we love you. So, Jared, do me a favor. And I know Nathan knows your story. I don't, and our listeners don't. Uh, can you maybe share with us?
Yeah, I'll do my best to keep it as brief but informative as possible. I was diagnosed with epilepsy at I was 17 on my way to UCSD for college. I was headed to my freshman orientation. I was stopping by actually to see a good friend who lived in Newport Beach who had been diagnosed with epilepsy about 6 months prior. And she was in the hospital for a video EEG. And I went to, believe it or not, 2007 Blockbuster was still around. So I'd gone to Blockbuster to pick up some videos so we could help her stay up late so they could try and see the seizures. And I was there till about 3 a.m. and she didn't have any seizures. I biked back to the house I was staying at and woke up maybe 2 hours later surrounded by EMTs and my mother and my mother's best friend, who I call my aunt. And everyone was quite scared except for the EMTs. They knew what was happening. And before I could really put two and two together, I was diagnosed with epilepsy on the spot. Um, yeah, it was pretty crazy. I saw a neurologist later that week. That neurologist was walking me through the questions and information. She told me how stress was, an important thing, and exercise was important. She asked if I exercised every day, and I said, "Yeah, I go surfing all the time. Surfing's great exercise. I do my yoga to help support my surfing, but I don't go to a weight room or anything anymore. I just surfing is my goal and my favorite thing." And she says, "Well, you're going to have to cut that out. It's dangerous. If you had a seizure in the ocean, you might die." And I said, "Well, if you want me stress free, I can't be salt free. Simple as that." And I remember seeing my mother over in the corner supporting me on that. And um, about 3 weeks later, I was starting college, and I kind of took the choice to hide my epilepsy from my peers. I didn't want it to be what defined me. I didn't want my friends being nervous about me. And, really, some people call it brave. I look back on it and call it relatively stupid. Like, I had no clue at all what I was up against. I had no clue really what the medicine was for, the best reasons to take it on that 12-hour schedule and all of that. And so I just went about it as yeah, this is, it's a condition, but I can get by and I'll just keep being myself. And if I'm stress free, that'll take care of it. And for the first 2 or so years, the seizures were pretty well regulated. They'd happen every 6 months or so. They'd always be really early in the morning, about 4:30 a.m. or so. And they were tonic clonic, but nothing that really, um, made me fall apart. I'd go to classes later that day. I'd never surfed on the day of a seizure, but phones, I didn't have an alert on my phone or anything like that to make sure 9 a.m., 9 p.m. it was taken. And right before my third year of college, so that's 2009, I was a great swell was on the way. I just moved off campus to this cool apartment in Encinitas and made good friends with my neighbor who was a surfer, and got him all hyped up on the swell. I was the morning dude who would wake him up, and I hadn't come to wake him up, and he was pretty shocked when he went and checked the waves and I wasn't out and I hadn't woken him up. And so he came over to my house and busted in, and he saw me on my couch, not breathing. And luckily he was a trained lifeguard. He gave me CPR. got the paramedics there. They took me into the hospital, and it was about a 10-day coma I battled through. Um, came out of that with a pretty renewed vision that, yeah, I guess this is pretty darn serious. I should take my epilepsy medicine on time every day. They renewed a couple prescriptions, changed it up. They tried to tell me I shouldn't go back to school that year. I said, no, I've got a goal to graduate on time, and I know how to attack this all better. And so I did just that. And um, for the next couple years, they weren't too bad. They'd happen here and there, and usually when they'd happen, I'd get an increase in one of the dosages, maybe both dosages, but they thought it was just because I'd had a bunch of concussions in high school. One from breaking my back while surfing, the others because I played water polo and was just quite a deviant at times in how I performed in that pool. And um, I remember, I'd go off and on about how much I cared about it. I had my pill boxes, I got my prescriptions, I did everything possible to not miss my medication, to get pretty good sleep and such. And no matter how hard I tried at that, the seizure frequency kept increasing, and the type of seizures kept increasing too, from tonic clonic to mild to deja vu's. Kind of, I was running through the whole gamut. And it was a little while later, I think it was about 2014 or 15. I'm from the Bay Area. I always go up there for Thanksgiving to be with my family and friends, and that's also when the great swell season starts up there. And went up super excited to get some good waves and some solid size, and had a really bad set of seizures that put me in a hospital. And that was a big turning point. And like, I missed one of the best swells I've ever seen in my life, and it really sucked. And I told myself I really need to turn around even further and kind of embrace the epilepsy as part of who I am. Alert my employer, make sure my coworkers are aware, make sure all my friends know how to take care of me if it happens around them, and all that. And that's when I started the line. What I kind of use as my tagline: epileptic opportunity. Every challenge creates opportunity in one way or another. And so find a way to embrace it, and use that as your motivation. And for a little while, things got better, and I got married, and my wife and I were talking about wanting to have kids sometime soon, but we came to the decision that just the epilepsy was, it was a dark hurdle, to feel completely comfortable to have kids, to feel like we could really take care of that with, um, was it going to be that she was the only one that could stay up late and wake up early? Was I going to be stuck to my 8-hour sleep schedule? And would she be able to leave the house without me, etc.? And I reached out to Nathan and said, hey, dude, can you find me a new neurologist? They haven't done anything other than increase this medicine or that medicine. And they've never really done any tests besides these 3 tests. I want to try and find a new solution. And that's when he helped take me to Dr. Antonio Escueta at UCLA. And at first, I'll always remember my first appointment with him. I brought my wife with me just as moral support. I didn't really think I was bringing her as informational support. And it was about an hour long appointment. And I think he asked me about 3 questions. And for the rest of it was asking her very detailed questions about my lifestyle, about my medicine habits, about what my seizures looked like from her vantage point, etc. He ordered a round of tests. Then I had another appointment, and he called my parents into it to ask my mother and father about my medical history from like the point of conception till that day, as much as they knew about it. And then there was another round of tests, and that's when they discovered I had focal cortical dysplasia. Um, and it was time to find a route to surgery. And it was about 7 months later, after another long series of tests to really make sure they knew exactly where it was, what possible effects surgery would have on my cognitive skills, that they went in. It was March 12th, 2018. So we're getting close to the 5-year anniversary. That makes me feel old, but uh, it was March 12th. It took just over a cubic centimeter out of the brain. I had 1 seizure in 2020 during the craziness of the pandemic. And then I had another one just about a year later, right when I was getting back into hybrid work. And I hadn't, there's a lot of stress about getting back to that lifestyle. And I missed my meds one night and paid the price. But now I'm running almost 3 years seizure free. We've decreased my medical dosage
Woo!
by like 70%. So life's a lot better. I actually had an appointment with him just last week. We were talking through everything, and he was telling me how happy he is with the overall situation. He even admitted when he first looked at all the scans and everything they'd done at first that I was going to be kind of a boring patient, that it probably was the concussions, and he's so happy that we found that cortical dysplasia and the different answer. And so, yeah, what I really like to do in the epilepsy community is, a lot of people that reach out to me are fellow surfers that were recently diagnosed, or moms and fathers of surfers who were recently diagnosed, and they ask me about safety precautions, and I tell them, don't follow mine. I was pretty dumb. I just surfed however and whenever I wanted. That approach is on you, but really at the end of the day, you need to create a good team, an aligned team where that person with epilepsy is the leader of the team. They feel empowered to be the one who talks to the doctor, to be the one who gets their prescriptions organized, sets their pill boxes, all of that. Because it's important, as much as you can contain with epilepsy, you also can't. And so whatever the team can do to find their support and support that person is vital to everyone having a health level that doesn't create stress and provides.
That's some awesome advice. I love that.
I do too.
Yeah, that's great. And we got some pictures. That was a lot, Jared. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, and it was amazing, Jared. And I'm just going to say the one word that just kept creeping through my mind when you were talking was inspiration. And it was just, from the very beginning of your story, when for a second, I was like, wait, I know epilepsy is not contagious. That was kind of amazing how you were going to see your friend with epilepsy. And wow, and then just your whole story is pretty outstanding and amazing and inspirational. And so I appreciate that. As a person with epilepsy myself, I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah. A quick funny caveat to that is that friend of mine, she never had a seizure after that. And she knows epilepsy isn't contagious, but she swears that I somehow took it from her or
Yeah,
something.
right?
Um, and at the end of
And
the day, I
she's never had any more seizures?
never had any more seizures
Oh
than her
my
first two.
god.
I don't think she's been on epilepsy medication for like over 6 years now, even.
Wow.
Um,
It's
and
like you took them from her.
I guess, and as like the older brother, I'm always grateful. I'm the one that
Hey,
had
when you get
epilepsy.
some time, Jared, you want to come to Kentucky and take
Yeah.
mine from me? I'd appreciate that, dog.
Yeah. He's
I
done.
mean,
He's done. He's paid
I'll
his
take
dues.
I'll take a couple of your meds for you.
Okay. Okay.
Wow.
Uh,
What meds do you take, Jared?
I take Briviact, Fycompa, and Vimpat.
Oh,
Pretty small doses, especially compared to what I was taking pre-surgery.
sure.
And the goal is every 6 months, I take down the dosages of one of them a little bit. At 6 months, seizure free, obviously. And then we do a test, either an ambulatory EEG or one of the contrast MRIs, to study how make sure that dysplasia is not around anymore. And once those two things are confirmed, yeah, we cut it down bit by bit. And, my doctor has an overall goal to get them completely out of my system at some point. And I've told him that would be a dream. Let's, put seizure free first. I've gotten quite used to it. It's been like 12 years of taking medications. Well, no, 2007 minus 16. So I can deal with it. But I do notice, like I was telling him last appointment, I feel like my brain has been refreshed over the last 5 years with both like the less dosage and the lack of the dysplasia still being in there. It's a lot more of a clear mind that I have. I think Nathan, you and I talked about it once where I felt like I had two different minds going
Yeah.
at times. Now it's just like one centralized mind, which is pretty nice.
Wow. Oh, go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna. We have some amazing pictures of you surfing, and we have some other pictures of you post surgery that I'd like to share. Um, and it's crazy because surgery, that can be a scary thing for a lot of people, and we can talk about your mindset there. But looking at these pictures, you're on Mavericks. Can you share with everybody what a Maverick is? I want you to set the course before I show these pictures because it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, Mavericks is this wave up in Half Moon Bay, California. It's a really big wave, doesn't start breaking until it's at least 15 foot plus a swell. And I grew up in the Bay Area. A lot of the guys I looked up to while I was surfing surfed there, and so it was kind of just a default that I had to be there at some point. And yeah, when you take off on one of those waves, it's an adrenaline push that kind of puts everything else to the side.
So what are we looking at now? Is that the barrel?
That's a barrel. That's down
Sick.
here in the 805 down south of Ventura.
Okay.
Um, that's a fun wave. I mean, Mavericks, the drop that you get to take on those is insane. You're going faster than you'll ever go on a surfboard, and yeah, that's Mavericks. Barrels are pretty beyond
Are
epic.
you airborne in that picture?
Yeah, that ended up in a pretty bad wipeout. Uh, It looks really good right there. And then like the follow-up picture, you see me skipping down the wave on my back with the lip landing on top of me and sending me to the bottom.
Oh, that's not it.
That's me going longboarding. I like to surf a lot, so I ride whatever boards are going to work for the conditions. For a while, I was pretty darn into longboarding.
How
I took
fast do you go when you're doing? You look like you're zipping right there.
Yeah, you go pretty fast on logs when you're in your nose rides at certain waves.
Wait, on logs? Is a log a wave? Is that?
Log is that's the name of that type of board. Big
Oh,
fat
oh,
old.
long. You say
Yeah,
long?
log. Take out the N.
Ah,
Surfers always we always cut off one letter or two to create our own language. But yeah, like logging is pretty damn fun. I prefer bigger waves and getting barrels over that, but when the waves get small, I'm happy to jump on those and dance like they used to do back in the 50s and 60s.
sick. Now I didn't know this before you sent me this picture, but you're a surf model. Look at this. Look at that. Tell us
I love
what's
it.
going on here.
That was with my buddy Luke Williams, a great local photographer that would always happily jump into the water to take photos while I was surfing. And that day was this really fun day at a local wave in Santa Barbara. It kind of usually doesn't get all that fun, and that's the face after a fun wave. We kind of have like these little folklore sessions. They don't get to happen too often since Mother Nature decides when and where you surf. And you get a kind of magical wave on a day like that, and it brings a smile that's hard to wipe off your face, even if you're trying to, like I
That's
was there.
and by contrast, we also have the serious surfer here.
Yeah, that's after Mavericks, after you've been beat up a couple times. That's what you look like. Um, That was by buddy J.R. Mankoff. He just happened to be a photog on the beach that day. He'd gotten a couple photos, and he was doing a series of profile photos, wanted to take a shot. And yeah, I took that one. I usually think I look weird, but I actually do kind of like that photo. And
No, that's a
uh,
sick photo.
That's a
got
good
the
one.
orange and black to represent my Giants.
Ooh, yay.
Um,
Where are you from in the Bay Area?
I'm from San Francisco and Marin.
Oh, okay. I'm from San Jose.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
big
Yeah.
Giants, Niners, all of them. Very
There
excited.
we go.
Yes, right?
Oh,
Yay.
Caught
you
him on
guys are
the
getting ready for
side.
Saturday, huh? Or is that
We're
game
playing, of
Sunday?
course, yeah, the
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cowboys. Ooh, ooh. Uh,
we'll
yeah,
beat
that's
him up.
exciting. I lived in San Francisco for a long time,
That's
but
awesome. Yeah.
I love it up there. I miss it, but get
So
back on.
what are some of the things you talked about in your it sounds like you're doing great with your medications. Any advice you want to pass on forward? I love hearing your advice and your take on things, and I think people always walk away having been, like Shannon said, inspired and if not enlightened.
Well, I think those are two kind of words. I
That's
look
who
back
kind.
on
Yeah,
I look back
people don't
at a
know
lot.
the real you.
Yeah, if you know the real me, you wouldn't be a no. But like, I look back on a lot of my epilepsy journey and just see a lot of learning points that I feel like I either missed or was forced to find. And maybe some of that was bravery or some of it was stupidity. Who knows? But the way I work on keeping my medicines in line and making sure I'm taking them is a combination of being friends with the pharmacy, like go into your local pharmacy and make sure they know you by name and they understand your condition and what you need. Like two of the three meds I take are controlled substances, so you can't get them until 2 days before you're going to run out.
Mhm.
And so you work to create a process with them where they know that that's part of it, so they can't order it 3 days ahead, but they're always ready so that they've got it on stock. Because there's sometimes when maybe they can't get it on stock, but they can pull in one of the other local pharmacies to help out. So making sure they understand exactly how timely your needs are, trying to get it aligned. And you can do this with your doctor too, so that, hey, like all two of these meds or three of these meds, they're controlled. So can we set it where you're going to renew my prescription so that they're all on the same day, so I don't have to go to the pharmacy three different times a month every month? And
Oh,
so
nice.
trying to create as organized a process for that as possible. I've used to have just one weekly little pill box for morning and nighttime, and then I bought another one so that I had two. So I was able to, switch them out every 2 weeks, and then I got really tired of having to always switch those things in and out. And I found a four week box where, uh, every 4 weeks I'm going to the pharmacy to get my new prescriptions. I also grab a nice pint of ice cream. As soon as the son goes to bed, I pull out the box, open it all up, start organizing them with either a good surf movie or a good funny show that my wife doesn't love to watch as the background. And as soon as I'm done filling up those pill boxes, I grab my ice cream and congratulate myself for preparing for another month on the road. Right, it's like finding that slight opportunity. Like if you're dealing with the challenge and you're doing it well, you should reward yourself in some way, shape, or form. Maybe ice cream's not the best reward possible, but I
That's
do
a
have
good
a sweet.
good one.
I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who doesn't like ice cream?
I
yeah,
love
and then,
that, especially that part, about the controlled substances. I think that's so key, and I think so many people get so frustrated, right? I mean, I need that. I need the medicine, it's like right now. And so making a plan for that, I think that's such great advice. I mean, you nailed it.
you have to work through hoops because again, those people that work at the pharmacy, they're there to support you. They're not there to put they didn't decide for it to be a controlled substance, and so they're there to help you however they can. And that's why if you make that personal connection, they'll go that extra length for you at times. I have alarms on my phone, both like just a regular alarm clock at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. that says take your medicine. And with the new health apps that are out there, you can also put in all that medical information so that, if I wasn't with my wife or wasn't with a friend who knew about my condition and they had to call the EMT or they needed to look for it, they could just pull it right up on my phone from the hold screen. They could tell the EMT exactly what meds I take, what my dosages are. Try to keep it as logged as possible to make sure that information is readily available. I've had those times where the EMT pulled up and they're asking me 25 questions and I know the answer, but that seizure doesn't help me translate the answer from my brain to my mouth. So if I, had that back then, I probably might have been able to avoid a couple emergency room trips or make everyone feel a lot more comfortable that, hey, this isn't a freak accident. was kind of expected in a sad way, but this is what's happening, and this is, what the next steps are. So, that might be a phone for some people. Some people have it written on a medical card in their wallet. There's a bunch of ways to make sure that information is readily available.
Do you have a favorite health app that you use?
I just use Apple Health.
Oh, okay.
There was, I think Epsi Health has a good app that you could use that I've tried in the past, and there's this one other one that was in development that I've worked with them to help on Nile. Um, but I have a almost 4-year-old son. I work a full-time job, try to surf at least once a day, and also give my wife time to do what she wants to do. So as much time as I have to spend on apps and researching apps, I try to keep that a little more simple. I also want to watch a lot of surf movies.
S- Speaking of your angel of a wife, here she is. Introduce us to your wife. There's two pictures here. That's in the hospital right after your surgery.
Yeah, that's a good face I got going. Um,
That's a great smile, all things considered, I will say. I mean, it's a very cute smile. And then you can see that scar on the right. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, it's no small thing that you went through.
it was definitely interesting. That's my wife, Jessica Muscat. She's an incredible human. I can't ever put enough praise towards her and all the work she's done in supporting me through the seizures she's seen or the medical trips we've had to take. She's had to take vacation days from work at times to come and be at the hospital with me, and or to stay home with me after the surgery and work remotely to help me on the recovery front. Um, I'll always remember that when the way I found out I was on the way to surgery was after one of my brain tests. I think it was a contrast MRI, and in that My Health app, it gave me an alert. Hey, test results are in, and it outlined focal cortical dysplasia. It didn't say anything about next steps. My doctor had yet to see it, and actually, my great wife, she's a traveler. She's the reason we named our son Atlas. I'm a traveler too, but that was her idea. And she was traveling. She was in Africa at the time, and so I got this notification, focal cortical dysplasia. I was like, "What the hell is that? I've never heard that before." And I Googled it really quick, and the first thing I saw was brain surgery. And I was like, "Oh my expletive,
You can say
expletive."
it.
Um, and I texted her right away. She didn't have service at the time, but she called me immediately, and I was frankly at first I was scared as heck. I had no clue what brain surgery was going to be like, what the process was going to be, how it might affect my brain skills, and I remember her just telling me, "Look, we'll get through this. You're going to be fine. We finally found an answer. It's not an easy one, maybe, but we found what the cause is and what we can do about it. So this is great news." And my brother moved in with us to help out, and it was like we had a little 3-person team where we would, my brother would help take me to and from appointments at times. She would help schedule them, make sure insurance was up to date, and keeping on top of the financial part of it, because that's always a little bit of the hurdle when someone tries to charge you for things that maybe your insurance covers, etc. And they're both emotional support beams, right? There's times maybe the medicine side effects would get me pretty eggy, or I was just scared as hell and had no clue what to concentrate on, what to think about. And we'd go out for a dinner, or we'd just go camping, something to just take my mind off the situation, or recontextualize it all. But yeah, she's pretty amazing. And I think I work not to feel guilty about it, but I think of all that I've had to put her through, and um, can't imagine having to be on her side of it. I've never seen a seizure in person, or on a video or anything. I have no desire to do so. I know what it feels like from the inside, and I know what everyone's eyes look like when you wake up from it. And um, it does suck. It absolutely is fucking awful to wake up from any of those. It's demoralizing. It's painful. It hurts. But to see a loved one go through that, I like, I can't imagine that pain. I watched my wife give birth. I watched my child fall and scrape his knees, and you want to do anything to like provide immediate assistance. And some of those things you can't, like, a scraped knee. You can give some assistance. Giving birth, you're like standing there pretending you know what's going on, but like when a seizure happens, that I can't imagine the emotion that would run through your body while you watch someone go through that.
That's a very, very, very valid. Just that's same thought has crossed my head too. I actually just had my first seizure in a while last week, and my girlfriend Katie, so it was her first rodeo, and yeah, it was her retelling me what that was like, and it sucks. And yeah, I felt kind of guilty just putting her in that situation, um, but it's it's hard. It's funny. A lot of people ask me, and I'm sure you as well, because as we're the ones having the seizures, it's a completely different experience
Yeah,
than your loved ones watching. And I think sometimes, and in some ways, take away all the physical pain of the seizure and the cloudiness. And like, I banged my head. I still have knots on my head, but just um, that helplessness that they feel on their side of things, or at least they've communicated to me. I remember the first time I saw a coworker have a seizure, I just bawled like a little baby. Just it was my first time actually seeing it after, I could just power through my own, and just, you know, power through, but it was really hard to see her
a
just
hundred
so helpless,
percent.
I think you
So
nailed it too when you said, well, one, the guilt, but two, demoralizing. Like you nailed it. That's the perfect word. And if you say that to anybody with epilepsy, they automatically understand what you're saying and how you feel. And I think that that's perfect. The one thing that has helped with, nothing helps. I still feel guilty after I had seizures. My last round of them was a year ago, and I have 3 kids. They're 14, well, at the time, they were 14, 12, and 10, and they were home. My husband wasn't. And it's one thing for my husband, it's another thing for your kids, right? Having to call the ambulance and deal with it. I just remember I felt so bad, and my 14-year-old daughter is like, "Mom, I'm fine. I'm
right,
totally fine." And I said, "I know you're fine now, but are you gonna grow up and have problems and issues?" And she's like, "I'm gonna tell you this right now, Mom. If I have problems and issues and do drugs, it's not because I saw you had a seizure. Saw you have a seizure." I was like, "Okay. All right, good. I can handle this then." If and it was just it was solid. Like it was such a solid thing for a little 14-year-old to say. And like, okay, if this 14-year-old can say this and feel it and believe it, then I can too. Then I can understand, that
yeah.
you're here for me and you've got my back. And that's all so that's helped. That totally has helped me.
And I think it's a slightly different thing, but between the relationship of the supporter and the person, right? Like as a as a father, when I see my son fall or he gets a cold or something, like, and you would relate to this, Shannon, like you want to do everything possible to immediately relieve that pain, take it away from them, take it on yourself if need be. And so if I can't imagine the difference of emotion between watching my mother have it versus watching my son have a seizure. Like that amount of protection you want to provide to your offspring or even to your younger sibling is so vastly different than what you want to do for your parent or something like that. And so that's where it's like creating that team of empowerment and making sure that person who's dealing with it head on has that leadership role, so they're the ones that set the boundaries, right? Like I had a rule where I was like, hey, after I have a seizure, mom and dad, I'll let you know that it happened, but I'm not going to talk about it in detail unless I feel I need to talk about it in detail or until I feel good enough to talk about it in detail. Because after it happens, I'm probably in a lot of pain, and I also am blaming myself for just hating life for a minute. So the last thing I want to think about is that seizure, and sometimes there'd be a battle about that where it's like, no, we need to know so we can tell the doctor. I'm like, no, I'm the one who talks to the doctor. I'm the one who does that. I had my wife by my side, or I had my brother by my side, or a coworker by my side, and I'm safe. That's what, that's what matters to me, is overall I'm safe. And so there's always like, there's going to be a different emotional toll it's going to take on each different person involved. And it's, I think it's like really important to recognize that for everyone, it's different. Both the person having it and the people supporting it.
Yeah,
Should be a
100%.
It'd be a
And
perfect time to cut in that scene from that Tom Hanks movie. I am the captain now.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you're your own captain. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, you're the one most responsible for taking your medicine and creating the lifestyle that provides you the least amount of stress and lets you live the life you desire. Like I recently wrote a piece for a surf article where a couple buddies of mine from the Mavericks lineup, they also have epilepsy. We knew each other well. They never told me they had epilepsy until I'd started to talk about it pretty frequently. And then they came to me, and I was shocked that they have it. And one of them, when I was talking to him recently about the article, he put it in some pretty good context as far as big wave surfing and epilepsy, where if you're a big wave surfer, and while I go after there and try after that and try it, I'm by no means as dedicated as these dudes, but you're putting your life on the line to go surfing at Mavericks, whether or not you have epilepsy. And so if you're willing to do that, you got to understand surfing's a pretty selfish sport. It's for self fulfillment and self entertainment. And um, if you're someone who's willing to put your life on the line to surf big waves, you're more than willing to put your life on the line for basically any waves as someone with epilepsy. And it's important to recognize that and address that in whatever you feel is the safest way possible. But to take away from your personal goals and personal pride and identity um, is a dangerous route to go for sure. Um, we all need some form of personal empowerment and personal entertainment and personal mental health balance.
Yeah.
you're very wise, Jared. I really enjoy listening to you and all the I'm kind of like, what's he going to say next? I feel like I do. I love it. So,
Thank you. We can agree to slightly disagree, but I appreciate it.
I
hey,
think
you said some great things. And I'm just going to say too, just about the seizure is different for every single person that's involved in it, whether, watching or having or uh even with this podcast, or even with me. I was diagnosed, it's genetic, so I was born with it. And so I've had seizures as a little kid, as a teenage, high schooler, teenager, college, 20s, whatever. I had seizures when I was pregnant. I've adopted. So I'm a parent, on so many levels. The one thing I've never been is a parent of a child with epilepsy, which is so different. And I didn't realize how different it was until my nephew was born with epilepsy. And my brother and I were having this conversation. And wow, that's just a whole different ballgame right there. And I hope it doesn't. I mean, so far we're pretty solid with the kids, but it's just so different for everyone.
100%. And I think, when I talk to parents, what I really emphasize is finding third party support for yourself, right? Like find a way to make sure that that kid doesn't feel the stress and emotions you're going through, and that you can find a way to feel confident in that child. Um, because if you don't, that wears on the kid in a way that you're not intending to bring that child any stress. But if you're not finding support for it for yourself, you are going to bring it to them in one way, shape, or another. Like I know there's a different version of myself who's had a long work day and hasn't surfed, and how that might sometimes come off on my child, being his three-nager self for a moment, or deciding he doesn't want to eat that delicious dinner my wife put together or something like that, versus hey, I got my surf in. Yeah, today was a long work day. Say goodbye to that and focus on, this child's happiness and their health, and create that good relationship with them. And I think it's a lot easier because he doesn't have epilepsy. But
Sure.
in general, like that's the motto I try to guide these people through. Don't share that your child had a seizure. Like that, if they want to share they had the seizure, let them share that they had the seizure. They probably don't want hundreds of people to know about every single seizure they've had, or that the side effects are having an issue with them, or like, you need to find your own support beam, because that's a way to help you empower that person. That's why my wife and I are very adamant in supporting each other's personal passions, right? Like, I'm going on a surf trip in 2 days, 3 days, on Friday, however many days that is away. I'm going to Portugal for 10 days to go surf with my brother. And I need those 10 days. I'm going to
Yeah.
miss my child and son like crazy, my child and wife like crazy. Um, but to go get those 10 days away from work to surf until my arms fall off, and to go experience new culture, that'll bring me back with a refreshed mind. And each day will be easier for a little while until my next surf trip. And same with my wife. She's going to Taiwan on a trip. She's got a scholarship to go there. She's an incredibly smart person working and study abroad, and she feels bad about leaving us for a little while. And I'm telling her, no, you need a break from us. You need this time. You love to travel the world. Like, this is a moment to take care of yourself. Um, and those moments when I'm frustrating you, or he might be frustrating you, will be easier to glide over when you get back. So it's very important, be it your child has epilepsy or not, that parents find that personal support.
See, again, wise. I love it. So, okay. Oh, go ahead. Nathan, I feel like I've been monopolizing. I don't know if you have questions
No,
or.
that's great. I mean, Jared, thank you so much for joining us. Shannon and I started this Hazy Not Crazy platform to talk to all of our fellow hazers out there, and just in a epilepsy unfiltered kind of way. So one thing we like to kind of wrap things up with is, if is what's that one thing, if there is, and we've covered a lot, I know, but that unfiltered kind of raw outlook on this. We've been, many of hours in the EMU together, and Shannon's, the homie too. And this is like kind of why we started this. So we're really excited. And I think you've covered a lot too. So you don't feel pressure to make anything up. But if there's anything, kind of that unfiltered, when no one else is watching, sort of advice or story or anecdote that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, what I tell everyone is, it's about empowerment, different forms of empowerment. The way I decided to find it was embrace that epileptic opportunity, right? Like,
Yeah.
use that. I even kind of did this back with my first neurologist, when she told me we'd gone through she telling me not to serve, telling me whatever, and then she goes, "Well, I know you're starting college, but alcohol sometimes impedes medication, so you really shouldn't drink alcohol." And I replied, "Well, that's great news, because I've tried beer and I hate the taste of beer. So now I can go to a party, just say, hey, I can't drink that because of medical reasons, not be hungover, wake up and surf before all my friends the next morning." Uh, so, like, what way can each one of us with epilepsy find a way to use some of the challenges as a means of looking towards an opportunity that you get from that challenge, right? I live up in Santa Barbara. My neurologist is down in LA. That's sometimes 2, sometimes 4 hours of driving, depending on traffic. Um, we had a great swell coming in. My appointment was at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I left my house at about 6 a.m. to just search for whatever waves looked the most fun. I put like 6 surfboards in my car, had a batch of wetsuits with me so I could change into a dry wetsuit after each session, had my work stuff with me, and turned it into a day of finding waves, doing work,
Oh, I love
going to
that.
dinner, and enjoying a ride home that felt like I'd accomplished something. Right. So, like,
I
look
love.
for a challenge that you can turn into that subtle opportunity. find a way to reward yourself for the way you're confronting that opportunity day in and day out. Um, one thing it took me until about 2 years ago to really come to terms with. There was times I was very depressed, and I wouldn't deal with it by talking to a therapist. I turn into rage, partially from side effects, partially just because I was kind of lost in the head. And um, so I encourage my fellow warriors, like, go find yourself a therapist to talk to. Maybe it's not because you have depression right now, or you're just trying to find a way to battle your side effects or whatever, but find someone that you can use who you don't see every day as a source of support. It's done wonders for me. And I say the same thing again to, like, the parents and the siblings, the loved ones of those people. Find yourself a therapist. You can go, find your support. And when you've heard I had a seizure, or you heard I was on the way to surgery, or I told you that my side effects were really bothering me, you're not going to come to me for the questions or come to me with stress. You're going to go to the therapist, and you're going to find your own answers for it. And then if I open up a conversation, we can all deal with it together. Because again, like you two even mentioned it, right? You wake up from a seizure next to a loved one, and as much as the seizure sucked, it almost sucks more where you're starting to feel guilty that they had to deal with that. And it's not it it's not our fault, even if we might have forgotten a medication or we stayed up too late or whatever. At the end of the day, if you have a seizure, it's 99.999999% not your fault. And that's just what you were cast to deal with. And make sure there's a way that you can not feel that emotional turmoil.
I love that, and I love that. And we have to turn this into an opportunity, Jared and Shannon. We got to do this surfing event, Jared. We got to do
Yeah,
this.
we really
Yes.
do.
We got to
I
pick this back
really
up.
do. It's great. I love doing it. I go out to seize the wave every July out um, in New Jersey. I almost said North Carolina. That's just because I wish that's where it was when hurricane season starts and you get to get good waves. But I really want to turn an annual one on here in California. There's so many people I know here in California that surf and have
Do you think it'd
epilepsy.
be better at the beach or at that wave park?
A wave pool would be awesome, just because it's a lot easier to
Consistent
have
waves?
waves, coordinated, consistent waves, where it's, like at New Jersey, we have it where there's a surf school participates in it. So each child has a direct instructor. There's an EMT ready on the beach. There's doctors there to help supervise. And so it's as safe as possible, but usually we get really weird waves. It's not like the best learning environment. And as someone who surfed for 28 years now, 25 maybe, every single day I've got a text thread with a bunch of my close friends, and we're texting each other reports from all the different parts of the 805 to try and find where the best waves are that morning. And right, like, it's both like the blessing and curse of surfing, that these storms generated from thousands of miles away are bringing you waves for a very limited window of time, and how good they're going to be is always dependent on so many different things.
So you like the wave park?
I've never gotten to go to one, so it's also partially selfish. Surfing's selfish. I want to go to one and put on a display, but it's also a
Where
way
is
to
it?
there's one in
What's it called?
east of LA, Kelly Slater Surf Ranch. That's the one I want to get it at.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I see it right here.
Just one single wave. You get to create a private session, and it's a perfect wave. It's the wave that myself and my friends are always dreaming of getting out in the natural environment. But you only get it in the natural environment so many times a year. And usually when it's like that, there's hundreds of people in the water, and you're battling each other and battling
So
the
this thing
ocean.
just generates a wave, like
Yeah.
you could do like one wave every 2 minutes or something.
Yeah, and the variety of surf skills that would be able to capitalize on that. Like, there'd be someone who just learned to surf might be getting the first barrel of their life.
So
and they're getting.
could we teach people how to surf there too? Like do like
Yeah,
little.
yeah, it's an easy takeoff. It's not the easiest wave to surf from people I've heard as far as trying to do turns and stuff, but to get on the wave and ride for a long time, to feel that speed and that exhilaration, while being in a pretty controlled environment is, I think, a great opportunity for warriors of all skill levels to, learn to surf, to get better at surfing. And I think, like Nathan, like you said, you and I lean on each other pretty often. Um, when I was going through my process to the surgery, the people that I leaned on my brother and my wife a great deal, but the people I spent almost more time talking to about the actual medical side of it were fellow warriors. People who either had the surgery, people who were on the way to surgery, people who didn't have the surgery and had different conditions and medicines. And like the way we can relate to each other is on a different level than people who don't have epilepsy, because we know the struggles in a very different way and we can relate to them in that very detailed way. And um, so if you got to get the best wave of your life or one of the best waves of your life or your first wave of life around someone who also has epilepsy, that like personal joy you would feel and that like personal motivation to go after it would be a little bit on a different level. And like, quick shout out, like one of my favorite tattoos, this brain that says focal cortical dysplasia, that was designed by a fellow epilepsy warrior who lives out in Australia. She found me on Google. We became friends. She has epilepsy. She was one of my main lean points during that time period. She designed the tattoo for me for free. And then she just had she had focal cortical dysplasia. She found out about focal from me. She asked her doctors for those tests. They determined focal. She just had surgery about 3 months ago.
Wow.
And she came to me during the process. Hey, what guidelines did you set up? What could you have done differently? All that type of stuff. I was talking to her almost daily right after the surgery because of that relation opportunity that you get. And, I want to end it all again by just saying, like, I can't thank my family enough for all that they've had to go through and done for me. My wife, just an incredibly strong human being. And I'm so grateful for all that she's put up with and all that she's done to empower me, and my brother for the way that he's been by my side relentlessly, time and time again. My parents, I can't imagine what they've gone through. And I'm sorry you had to deal with it, but I'm also proud that you've gotten through it and that we're all on the other side of it. And to my fellow warriors who've, some of them I've never met in person, but are still people I talk to on the regular. And I love you all. And I take great pride in being a part of the epilepsy community because we're all in it together. We all take pride in that. And that leads to a lot for each one of us in different ways.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love it. I love it. What a great way to sum it all up.
We'll definitely clip that. Jared, thank you so much for joining us, dude. I'm gonna totally geek out on this Kelly Slater Wave Company. Look into that this afternoon.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
We're on
let's
board.
do it. I'm trying to work on some of my connections there. But my pocketbook's not too thick, and I'm not famous enough of a surfer. Maybe someday, though. Think we can
We'll
work on it
figure it out.
together.
Maybe we could do it because, we're at the Hunley Foundation, so maybe we could do it through the Hunley Foundation and have
Yeah.
it be kind of that kind of it could be really, really fun.
Let's set aside an actual like meeting time to
Let
go
I'm
after
okay.
it, and we can work on it three-pronged approach.
Where is the actual surf ranch? It says Culver
It's
City.
in Liverpool.
Where?
Culver City, yeah.
This thing's right in the middle of Culver City?
Yep. You need a lot of space to create that. So
Wow.
Nah, but
yeah.
there's no. I'm looking at the map. It just doesn't make sense to my brain right now.
I'll send you some videos of it from on Instagram. But
Like Culver City in LA, like where Sony is, Culver City.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. We'll check it out.
Maybe I'm
That's
still
dope.
post-ictal from my seizure. I don't know. All
I
right,
hear
Jared,
ya.
we love you, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll definitely set a meeting and we'll talk about that. That would be really special. And yeah, we can talk about
100%.
that
Love it.
for a
Thank you all for your great work. I look forward to the times ahead. Keep it stoked.
Thank
yeah.
you. You too. All right.
All right, brother.
Cheers.
We'll talk
See
soon.
you, Jared.
Bye.
Bye.